we're going to be talking about spiritual migration and the creation of new environments. So, first thing first, before we fully hop into this video, we're going to be looking over some transits and some transitions and some current energies in the sky that we're getting influenced by, with the moon being in Sagittarius, to kick off and give us a good starting point of what we need to be diving into and what we need to be looking forward to when it comes to the moon being in Sagittarius and the sun being in Libra. So when it comes to us having to react and respond to the energies of Sagittarius, this is going to be the things that's going to be making us feel emotionally comfortable. And these are going to be the types of circumstances and situations that we're going to be gravitating a little bit more towards when it comes to the abilities and the attributes and the natures of Sagittarius. So when it comes to the moon being in Sagittarius, we're all going to be in a space of reacting and responding to mutable fire, being mutable and adaptable and changeable to our own and other ways of seeing and feeling. So when we have the moon here in a mutable position, when it comes to its modality, this is going to be us being able to hop into the energy signature and navigate through the spaces of being able to exchange our own and be able to see where we can add on or what we need to separate from when it comes to the exchange of our own and other people's philosophies about the world, spirituality, and God. So right now, when it comes to the sun being in Libra, the sun being in Libra is going to be helping us come to some form of agreement. So things won't have to be so conflicting between the way that we're going about and the things that make us feel comfortable when it comes to our spiritual system and our spirituality, and how other people are deriving and going about their spiritual systems and their spirituality. So when it comes to this opportunity that's being created between these two energy signatures, this is going to be us having this opportunity to be able to come across a little bit more relatable when it comes to how we're going about our spirituality and our morality and our beliefs. So this is also going to be us looking and paying more attention to the things that we value, if we're valuing the right things, or if we're utilizing the things that we value for a form of escapism, playing out the lower opposite side of Sagittarius, and not actually understanding that some things that we may be emotionally attached to, those may be the same things that may have us feeling like we're in a cage in some way, shape, or form. Because we're all going to feel like we're being caged in by our emotions, and we're going to be trying to find some intellectual or intuitive way to be able to expand out of that emotional cage. So especially if you are around people, places, and things that's pushing out these thoughts and feelings into the environment that you're picking up and receiving through your moon chakra, and these individuals' ideologies that's on their mind doesn't resonate or put you in a state of being where you can feel emotionally comfortable around these individuals and being around these individuals and expressing yourself. And when it comes to the types of ideas and mentalities that they may be lost into, the desires that they may be lost into, when it comes to things that deals with and that governs the 1, 2, and 3rd dimension. So these individuals may be playing out crab in a bucket type of energy. These individuals may be individuals that's heavily into religions and things of those natures, heavily invested into their morality, their moral systems, and they don't have a sense of freedom to them. So when it comes to the interaction between you and the other individual, you pick up this vibration, this vibe, this feeling that this other individual, just because the types of mentalities that's on their mind, is kind of smothering you in some way, shape, or form, because they may not have went through enough experiences to be able to accumulate and to be able to, see where they may be wrong, because these same things that they may be clinging on to as a crutch may be the same things that got them into some form of spiritual bondage. So with you being an adult, wise spirit, you may be able to pick up on these energies ahead of time. So you won't have to go down the trains of thoughts and lines of reasonings of having to clash against y'all clash with y'all philosophical points of views about the world, spirituality, and God, because you will know how to travel to that space mentally, because Sagittarius also, you know, represents mental travel and external travel. So traveling within the mind, and that can also condense and bend in with, you know, actually traveling, going to different geographical locations. So this is why they kind of correlate Sagittarius to having a free spirit, because they like to travel mentally and physically. So they don't like to feel confined. They don't like to feel caged in. So when understanding that, and understanding that's the type of energy that we're all going to be experiencing on an emotional, more intuitive level, those are going to have to be the type of energies that we're going to have to kind of gravitate more towards, so we can be able to put ourselves in a state of comfortability and familiarity without being around individuals that's making us feel caged or limited about the things that's on our mind and our spiritual system and our spirituality and things of those natures. And also when it comes to our values, if we haven't been valuing the right things, if we have been valuing the wrong things, this energy may expand us out of the things that we actually was valuing and loving and appreciating, because we wasn't doing it in moderation and things of those natures. So we got to make sure whatever we got going on and the things that we are compromising with, that we're doing it in moderation before this moon in Sagittarius take it away from us, because we was utilizing for some form of escapism, and we was kind of de-appreciating the things that we had. We wasn't really valuing and cherishing the things that we had. We probably was, you know, overindulging into those things. So the same things that you love, appreciate, and value can be the same things that destroy you. That Mars going into Jupiter, you end up getting expanded into some form of restriction, into some form of limitation, into some form of boundary, however they may play out in your life. But yeah, that's just a breakdown, since we're 7 minutes in, when it comes to the sun being in Libra and the moon being in Sagittarius. We're finna get into this video when it comes to spiritual migrations and how we all migrate as a spirits. So, as spirits, you know what I'm saying, taking these vessels, taking these shapes and forms. So when it comes to, you know, looking at nature and observing nature, we can see this playing out when it comes to animals and birds and just nature in general. When it comes to the seasons, how the seasons transition, how birds and animals transition. So just looking at this and observing this from a macro scale, when it comes to us looking at how seasons going, how we have spring, summer, winter, and fall, how the seasons transition, and how intuitively the birds and the animals be able to pick up a sense. So when it comes to those atmospheres changing, that production of fusion, friction, and pressure that's creating that hot cloud, how we're rotating and experiencing different positions of it. So this is why in one geographical location, they can be going through spring and summer. In another geographical location, they can be going through fall and winter. And in another geographical location, they could just be experiencing winter and things of those natures. So when it comes to this mechanism taking place in reality, when it comes to us being able to observe the changes in the seasons and how the birds and animals are able to pick up a sense of it, so this gives them the ideas that they may need to change and go to a different geographical location where it's playing out more energies of spring and summer and fall and winter before the geographical location and the space that they're relative to fully gets into that fall portion. So that's where we start to see things start to die. That's where we start to see things start to deteriorate before it fully gets into winter. That's where we're fully encapsulated into that energy of things is dead. We're experiencing death. We're experiencing the death transition of the atmosphere, the environment. So when it comes to us understanding this and how we're all able to relate to this, when it comes to every walk of life, from animal to human to bug to parasite, This is what gives bugs the ideal and animals the ideal in, going into hibernation. So they can start to, shelter themselves from the extreme conditions of the atmosphere. So when it comes to us understanding this on the physical level, now we're going to take it a step further and see how we can understand this on the metaphysical level. So we can actually start to see how this mechanism is playing out in all of realities. When it comes to our ability of creating shape and forms, utilizing that shape and form, giving life to that shape and form, and then experiencing the expiration date of it, 1, 2, and 3rd dimension. So we can go back to that point of reference for the first time, where we sprung those ideas and those seeds from, so we can be able to create a greater shape and form. So this is also a form of migration. So this is spiritual migration that we're going to be doing. So when it comes to spiritual migration, let's use this for an example. We get trapped inside a form, but let's go to a time where we wasn't in a human vessel. We wasn't in a human body. Let's say that we was taking on shapes and forms in vessels and vehicles that didn't have as much awareness as the human consciousness. So we was more in a parasite body. So let's say, for instance, we're experiencing those levels of lives and those levels of awarenesses. So we're accumulating, we're becoming more smarter about the world and environment around us. We're going through more experiences as teamwork makes the dream work. When it comes to how we're building, how we're constructing life, how we're utilizing those organs, how we're able to see how things are playing out around us when it comes to the interaction of us and how we're interacting to the environment and things of those natures. So being in those levels of lives, taking on those shapes and forms, coming from the spiritual realm into the metaphysical realm and to the physical realm, this is going to be showing us how we created that whole existence in reality from a mustard seed out of thin air. So it's not like we're going to be able to hop into a shape and form and fully know how the ins and out about it, unless we have a different spirit who was able to take that shape and form and then get lost into the desires in creating those shapes and forms. When it comes to those mental forms, condensing and agreeing to those desires via natural selection, via what's relative to that position. When it comes to those mental forms, and we're in a space to creating those mental forms, mind fields of realities, and things of those natures. So this was the level of awareness that we was able to emanate from our space of nothingness, our point of reference for the first time. So when it comes to the creatures and the characters and the technology we was able to utilize when it comes to us happening to those vehicles and those shapes and forms, it wasn't as much. So this is where carnation, incarnation, and reincarnation comes into play. And also, back in support incarnation, incarnation, and reincarnation, we also get creation, mutation, and evolution. So when it comes to carnation, incarnation, and reincarnation, we all have this ability. So when it comes to all of us having this ability to carnate, incarnate, and reincarnate, this also deals with our desires and the things that we are attracted to as a spirit, as a spiritual root race. So when it comes to us taking those shapes and forms, taking a lesser vehicle, so we haven't expanded as much as a spiritual root race. So we're still small and compact when it comes to our ability to expand and contract, because NASA would get everybody lost into up, down, left, right, heliocentric and geocentric models, when in all actuality, if you go outside and let God teach you these things, it's more about expansion and contraction, closeness and distance, dimness and brightness. So when it comes to our ability to expand and contract and those lesser shapes and forms, first we got to kind of understand how we got to the point where we was able to actually create organs and bodies to be able to come out the water via the type of geographical location that we inhabited when it comes to the sun producing that, when it comes to the atmosphere producing that sun, and we're all able to hop into those vehicles. And when it comes to how we're seeing those clouds condense and become the actual waters below, as above, so below, and how we all emanated this from becoming aware, as within, as without, and how we was able to utilize that mechanism to hop into those vehicles so that we can be able to experience levels and awarenesses and levels of lives when it comes to how we were sharing existence. So this takes us back to when we were sharing existence, but it was more dreamy. It wasn't as physical. It was lighter in weight. So it didn't play out as heavy in density because we didn't have so much accumulation of different mentalities and thoughts and feelings and color spectrums and smearing it all together to create a different temperament, which became this sea level and sea pressure that we're able to see how, particles and minerals, and we're able to see how land gets to ride from the condensing and the contraction and the collapsing of those clouds so that these things can get pressured from, the salts and the cell salts and things of those natures, and how we're able to understand that mechanism. And as a spirit hopping in and out of these shapes and forms, giving it pulses, expanding and contracting it, we're able to utilize that mechanism and that technology that we just created within our mind to take it back to that space of nothingness, 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, and be able to use that substance so we can come back into these same realms of realities that we just created and utilize it as an extension to what we already have created. So this would be different types of sea creatures, different types of plants, different type of plant lives that's getting ready to get developed on those lands and at the bottom of the ocean and things of those natures. And then, how we're able to utilize those mechanisms, how we're able to utilize that mechanism and that ability once those, vehicles and vessels expire and go back to, 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, the most expanded, be able to take the information that we have accumulated when it comes to how we're observing how the atmosphere is flowing and how our organs is being produced and how we're utilizing those two things to come together with us being in this realm of duality when it comes to how we're kind of putting ourselves together and building our mind, able to go back to the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension with that same ability, expand it, contract it, hop into a different, more evolved creation that we have mutated when it comes to developing different technologies. Now we may have like a finger, now we may have like an arm, now we may have like an eyeball, we may have an eyeball so we can be able to see the actual sea that's going on. So now we know how to direct ourselves, now we know how to swim, things of those natures. Once we develop those organs and those tissues, because it always felt like astronomy or astrology, astronomy, and anatomy. So we understand the astronomy, time and the place, astrology, meanings and reasons, the spiritual mechanism behind it, and anatomy, how it plays out and how we create organs and bodies from that mechanism of us condensing and being able to utilize that condensing to material so it can actually become something physical, tangible, something that we can stand on, something that becomes a casket. So this is like a casket when it comes to the overall. So we're experiencing the death from the life and the birth. So don't get that conflated. NASA, Masons, don't conflate that. We're experiencing a death. So we're not this, what we're experiencing right now is the death. 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, life, ability to give life impulses to the mind so it can be able, so the blood can be able to pump sufficiently to the organs. Birth, our ability to spark a new awareness. So when it comes to us going through that transition, spiritual birth, 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, then, spiritual death, 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, metaphysical birth, 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, metaphysical death, and then physical birth, 1, 2, and 3rd dimension, and then 1, 2, and 3rd dimension, the most inner the most inner but outer layer that we created, cloth that we created from the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension, the space that's closer to nothingness, because we can't go back to the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension without being unconscious. So that's like unconscious becoming subconscious, and then subconscious becoming conscious. So understanding that, and understanding that how the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension is correlated and corresponds to the Garden of Eden, this is where God resides. So when we talk about God, God is a space. God is an essence. God is nothing. So we're just observing, being a spirit, all separated from nothing, becoming something, hopping into our somethings, singling ourselves out from all 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, becoming aware for the first time. Teamwork makes the dream work. All coming together in these spaces. So when it comes to you becoming aware, and the spirit that becomes aware next to you, and the spirit that becomes aware next to that spirit, and the spirit that becomes aware next to that spirit, we're all adding on to something that we're making. Teamwork makes the dream work. That plays out like a accumulation of a substance, of an essence we just brought from being in that space of all possibilities, where we was once with God before we want to experience our own creation and fail from grace. So when it comes to understanding the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension and that mechanism, this can kind of help you understand how we're able to develop and hop into shapes and forms and vehicles, so we can be able to take on new levels of awarenesses when it comes to us still having the ability to create, mutate, and evolve. So it doesn't stop. Creation, mutation, and evolution doesn't stop when it comes to the physical. So we're able to take this and add this on to what we're doing within our mind as well. Because first, we may have only been able to be aware of the little small things. So those was the types of worlds that we was creating for ourselves to experience with others. When it comes to the spirit that's aware next to you and sharing that space. So we all got like a little, so we all are, all of us, when it comes to us creating the awareness, it's like we're all in our own little bubble. But we're all like little bubbles in the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, floating around in a lily pond, sparking awarenesses. So you can have a big bubble, a big orb that you created that contains a lot of information. So all that information that lights, that plays out light and weight, that orb contains, you're able to utilize that to create that organ just relative to that information and that technology that light contains when it comes to the creation of this whole stimuli in existence. So when it comes to understanding that, let's go back a little bit. Let's jump back in time a little bit. So when it comes to understanding this, and when it comes to when we first became aware, the information that we may have acquired to experience this whole realm of reality, when it comes to us being able to take that information and create brains and fashion organs and things of those natures, may have only been able to comprehend things that deals with us having one finger, us walking on our belly, being snake-like creatures, or, you know, us not being able to develop the actual organ structure, bone structure, anatomy to be able to communicate. So we had other ways and other forms and other facets of being able to communicate. So this is where, you know, it's kind of like more intuitive. Until we got to that space where, you know, through levels of experiences in the 1, 2, and 3rd dimension, once that shape and form expired, we was able to take what we have experienced, take it back to 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, expanded it, went through that expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, and being able to apply what we have observed from the environment and how we got derived from that environment and what was needed, how we was able to utilize that as a form of intelligence, becoming more intelligent about ourselves. We learn new things every day, discover new things every day, discovering new things about ourselves, So once we add that thought and idea to that world that we're creating for ourselves, that condenses, and through evolution, it creates a extra add-on, a extra tissue to whatever we got going on. However we're creating ourselves and manifesting ourselves and willing ourselves into these existences to experience amongst each other. So once we come back into the 1, 2, and 3rd dimension, we're able to have an extra tissue that's able to create some form of sound. So now we're able to communicate. Now we got a voice box. And then the more spirits that goes through that transition of being able to add on to that awareness that we just created and emanated and building on awarenesses. Now we get a whole different, way. We got a whole different water cycle. We got a whole different essence, a whole different substance that we're able to filter through and utilize that as a form of intelligence, so we can add that to our mind, so we can be able to communicate and vocalize and share ideas in some way, shape, or form. So when it comes to spiritual migration, this is the true spiritual migration. So when it comes to how spiritual migration is in synchronicity with physical migration, from a spiritual perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, we're able to see how one spirit is able to travel from one space to another space, and how other spirits are able to follow those same footprints in the sand so they can get from one space to another space, so they can be able to develop new technology about themselves, becoming more intelligence about themselves. Because that one spirit that was in that geographical location, mind field, has already expanded out of that awareness and was able to take the information and the intellect and the data that it collected from being in that space, being in those minds, and was able to go back to the space where we're actually creating ourself, we're fashioning ourself, we're putting ourself together, and we're just experiencing our creation. 7th, 8th, 9th dimension was able to utilize that information and that technology to add on to something new that was sparked, because that spirit has already expanded out of those shapes and forms, so that spirit can't hop back into those similar shapes and forms, because that spirit has already gave enough pulse. So this will be like a regress, an infinite regress system, if that spirit create another mind that's similar to those minds. So it got to create a greater or more broader mind. So this is where we get evolution from. So this is how we can have different species. So this is how we can have, animals being able to train bugs, eat bugs, humans being able to train animals, eat animals, humans getting trained by the atmosphere, get ate up by the atmosphere, and things of those natures. So when understanding that and understanding that mechanism, because once you fully got a grasp of that mechanism, creation, mutation, evolution, birth, life, death, carnation, incarnation, and reincarnation, once you fully get a grasp of that mechanism, and you kind of see how life and existence is playing out, and how we're always creating bodies for ourselves, and how we're always expanding and contracting and adding on to the universe, this kind of gives you the idea like, what if I was able to take that whole mechanism and become a being that gets so expanded because I became aware, I wasn't lost into none of my desires, I wasn't lost into none of my demon urges, I wasn't lost into nothing of the 1, 2, and 3rd dimension. What if I imploded these organs and I didn't get lost into them, but I still had that ability attached to me? So this is you taking that intelligence, the information that you just consumed, imploded it, went back to the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimension, expanded, imploded it, exploded it. Now when it comes to you becoming aware now, the things that you may be aware of when it comes to this creation of existence and how geographical locations get created and formed out of, what we have emanated as within, as without, you're able to understand that. You got a grip on that. You got a grasp on that. So now you're able to take a vehicle, create a mind that plays out that nature in totality. So now you're a being that can only take the shape and form of a geographical location. So this is you becoming an extension of the universe, but also becoming a creature that takes the shape and form of the atmosphere. So when it comes to the nets, the type of emanations, the type of things that you're creating, and how that's going to play out in the 1, 2, and 3rd dimension in reality, you're going to be in a space where you're not getting lost into the color spectrums and the desires, but you're able to produce and be a womb, be a space where spirits are still getting lost into those mentalities, those thought forms, and those desires can live through you. So they can be able to live through you. So you know how to, so you're the spirit controlling that entity, that mind, that know how to create that sea. You know how to create that realm of reality. You know how to fashion those organs. And when it comes to your level of awareness, that's going to be determining what type of organs that you're going to be fashioning. So at first, when it comes to, already understanding the human, the ins and out, when it comes to being able to hop into a human vessel, because you may have been a spirit that have experienced carnation, incarnation, and reincarnation already. So you're already a wise spirit. You may be a teacher here. You may already know the ins and out. You may already be in tune with your spiritual predecessors. So now you're able to take on a body that's big enough to be an addition, an expansion to this existence that we're all experiencing, because you don't learn lessons. You don't learn all your lessons. You don't pass all your tests being a human, not getting lost into your demon urges, not getting lost into your emotions, not being too lost into your feelings, not being too lost into things that deals with having to please the flesh. But this whole time you was being aware and observing of your higher natures. So you kind of picked up a scent on how those things are interacting. So by default, with you being in that space, creating minds and awarenesses, eventually these organs isn't going to be sufficient enough to be able to withstand those currents that you're going to be pushing out like a fume when it comes to you taking that next level of awareness, that next life, becoming an atmosphere. So when it comes to the type of creatures that you're going to be creating, the type of organs that you're going to be fashioning, may not even be able to be physical. So you may be completely metaphysical. So this is going to be you. You're going to be completely metaphysical. Ether. Knowing how to use the fire, water, air, and earth. Because it's spirits that already kind of did this. We wouldn't have people like the Lord of Pilot Man. We wouldn't have people like Archangel Uriel speaking this type of knowledge, being able to bear this type of fruit and give it to God by waking us up. So when it comes to us going through this spiritual migration, as teamwork makes the dream work, this will be all of us building a new world that doesn't play out as dense and low vibrational. And we may not be able to create shapes and forms and bodies anymore that plays out dense and low vibrational. So the type of stairs that we're going to be creating and building on God with, it's going to be more of the circumference. Because right now, we're stuck into duality. So we're the fifth spiritual root race, but we're also stuck into duality. So the next root race that we're going to be able to become, the sixth spiritual root race, welcome to the sixth dimension, getting y'all mind ready for the sixth dimension. It's going to be, okay, you already know about singularity, becoming aware, seeking yourself out, duality, experiencing that with other individuals. Teamwork makes the dream work, creating that environment. Now, you're going to be able to hop into that spaceship, that mind field, that quantum field, and be able to utilize that as a BITCH, as a form of creation, mutation, and evolution. So when this comes to all of us becoming aware, and that level of awareness, where we're able to take those properties from 3, being able to understand 1 + 1 = 3, and being able to understand 3 is androgynous, having both masculine and feminine qualities, we're going to be able to produce those types of natures when it comes to us taking that shape and form that we're going to be experiencing until it inspires, until it's time for us to create something new. So the types of beings that we're already familiar with, being in the 1, 2, and 3rd dimension, may already be lost into organs, having 2 left feet. But the next ones that we're going to be getting ready to create may not have no feet at all. It may be more dreamlike. It may be more fluid. So that's how we're going to be sharing realities when it comes to us becoming aware on that level. So we're going to be asleep here, but we're going to be woke there. So this is going to be tapping us more into having more authority over the 3 and 6, so we can reach the 9. I think it's those natures. So that's why my name 360. So y'all can go beyond me. Okay, it gets beyond me when it gets to that point. So I put y'all in that 0 space so that y'all can start to look around. Y'all create y'all little eyeballs and y'all creatures in that little 0 space. Y'all be able to look around and be like, dang, it's nothing here. It's nothing here. That's the point. You got to create it. So once y'all get to that 0 space and y'all reach that egg, y'all be able to emanate. Y'all be able to bust a nut. So once y'all bust that nut, y'all be like, ah. You know what I'm saying? Y'all be able to bust that nut, create that new atmosphere, create that new geographical location. You know what I'm saying? So y'all can have new speciations and things of those natures. So this is us going back and making nothing look like something. Well, making something look like nothing. So we won't be so limited. We won't be so constrained. Things won't be so blocky. Things won't have so much. Things won't be so low vibrational and dense, because this is all that this world is an accumulation of low vibrational density and things of those natures. That's why we got humans and organs and things of those natures. But we're going to be able to, be able to actually skip that and take that beyond and become more celestial type of beings, like how we was at first, but doing it on a more smaller level, because we wasn't as broad, we wasn't as aware. So we came after the fact. Now we have this information. Now we're able to take that and be able to expand it, so we won't get back lost into the creation and create more hells and worlds that mimic this, because we don't want to be the spiritual root race that make that same mistake and create another hell, another world that mimic this one. We want to go beyond this one and start to create something that's don't have nothing to do with having 2 left feet, having arms and things of those natures, where we're just creatures flying around in each other's imaginations, not knowing, you know what I'm saying? So that's how we really take flight. That's how we really star walk. And that's the real spiritual migration that's going to be going on. Because if not, we wouldn't be seeing this taking place in nature when it comes to birds, animals, the season of transition, the sun going from one position to another position, and melting that state of being, melting that form, so it can enter a new one, and things of those natures. So we all have this ability And we're all doing this in our micro levels. But understanding this knowledge and understanding that these are going to be the next transitions that we're going to be getting ready to take, experiencing in this human vessel. So we can be able to, actually fashion an organ, fashion a world, fashion a geographical location. The better, the more intellectual that we be able to get when it comes to us creating and emanating in those spaces with spirits that's there. I'm just saying, who says it stops there? You know what I'm saying? Who says it stops there? All possibilities. But yeah, we just got to make sure we don't make the same mistakes and get too lost into men and women. So this is going to be us becoming the real men and women. We're becoming real men and women, not trying to be like a man or a woman, being in these male and female bodies. In actualities, we're just dragons and mermaids and centaurs in actuality. But this is going to be us being able to become actual men, real men and women, and walk amongst those beings that's there, that's not lost into their animalistic nature. Because this being that we're in is lost into its animalistic nature. This being that we're in is still like a little snake creature. It's like a little, little snake creature that's, flying around. It's dead, really. It's dead. But it's still like a little snake creature that's walking around in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension. You know what I'm saying? So this being dead, still in its animalistic natures. So spirits that get are attracted to this being, natural desires that comes after the fact, got humans. That's why individuals and humans are snakish. You know what I'm saying? That's why everybody is snakish down here. You can't trust nobody. You might get bit. Everybody's like playing out those qualities. Even when it comes to our body, our skin, snakish, scaly. So like, that's really what's going on. And when like becoming an atmosphere, and becoming an angel, I don't even like that word. That word is outdated. That's some shit down here now. But when becoming an atmosphere, this is you being able to shed from this snake skin, from this cocoon, and becoming a butterfly. You being able to actually grow up and become an adult in a spiritual realm. Instead of you being a little kid, little badass kid that still needs to be, hit on the head, still needs to be sat down, you know what I'm saying? You becoming an adult when you go through that egg, when you go through that transition, and shedding from that skin, that layering system that condenses to become this body, this organ, this geographical location. And spirits that's, being able to come in and out of this portal system. I think it's in those natures. So just understanding that, understanding how we're creating minds and how we're creating bodies and how we're creating awarenesses, and making sure that you have the right things in your mind, making sure that you're understanding yourself, making sure that you know about astronomy and astrology, so you're not getting lost into these low animalistic natures, your anatomy, so you can be able to take that ability and expand it, so you can be able to become something else, become something more beautiful. Instead of getting lost into this lie, this Lucifer, you're able to create a greater lie that's more closer to the truth that you may have to lie in, until we create another lie that's closer to the truth. Because at the end of the day, we all lying to ourselves. Because at the end of the day, ain't nobody God. So ain't nobody all possibilities. We just have a piece of all possibilities to make all possibilities possible. So this is how we start to build all possibilities. So we may create an existence, or we may just look in the sky, and we see all possibilities. Real shit, you better believe it. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's been Hookah 360. Hope I enjoyed this video. Peace.